Our endless search for happiness is a defining struggle of modern life. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius once wrote that the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. This ancient insight reveals a startling truth. We have been looking for fulfillment in all the wrong places. What if the key to a good life was not invented by modern psychology, but was lost in the libraries of ancient Rome? This video will give you a complete framework for lasting tranquility, one built not on changing your circumstances, but on mastering your mind. We will uncover why a 2,000-year-old philosophy predicted our current crisis of meaning. And we will explore how its radical principles, like focusing only on what you can control and loving your fate, offer a profound path forward. What does a truly good life look like to you now? The single most powerful idea for reducing anxiety is nearly 2,000 years old. It is the Stoic principle known as the Dichotomy of Control. The Greek philosopher Epictetus, born a slave, opened his famous handbook with this very lesson. Some things are within our power, he wrote, while others are not. Within our power are our opinions, our impulses, our desires, and our aversions, essentially everything that is our own doing. Outside our power are our body, our property, our reputation, and our public offices, essentially everything that is not our own doing. This is the bedrock of Stoic resilience. It is not a call to apathy, but a profound strategy for focusing your energy where it can actually make a difference. The modern world constantly pushes us to worry about outcomes we cannot command. We stress over whether we will get the job, whether people will like us, or whether our investments will pay off. This creates a life of constant background anxiety. The Stoic solution is radical clarity. For instance, consider a job interview. You cannot control whether the hiring manager prefers another candidate. You cannot control the company's internal budget decisions. What you can control is your preparation, your research on the company, the thoughtfulness of your answers, and your conduct during the meeting. By shifting your entire focus to that inner realm of effort and intention, you replace frantic worry with purposeful action. The outcome, whatever it may be, then becomes easier to accept because you know you mastered the part that was yours to handle. Think of one thing that is causing you stress right now. Is it truly within your control, or are you exhausting yourself by trying to command the uncommandable? What if your biggest challenges were not obstacles, but essential ingredients for your growth? This is the heart of the Stoic concept of amor fati, a Latin phrase that translates to a love of one's fate. It is far more than simple acceptance or finding a silver lining. It is an active, joyful embrace of every event, every setback, and every piece of misfortune life hands you. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, facing plague and war, wrote in his private meditations, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." See your life in this way. Everything that happens to you is fuel. It is material for your inner fire to transform into strength and light. The modern idea of looking for a bright side is often passive, a search for comfort in pain. Stoic amor fati is an active choice to love the pain itself because of what it makes of you. It is the ultimate reframing of reality. Setbacks are not interruptions to your path. They are the path itself, the training ground where your character is forged. Consider the story of the philosopher Epictetus. He was born into slavery, his body permanently crippled by a brutal master. Yet he did not see himself as a victim of circumstance. He saw his physical limitation and early suffering as the very conditions that forced him to turn inward, to develop a philosophy of unshakable inner freedom. His lameness was not a tragedy to be mourned. It was the foundation of his greatness. This is amor fati in its most profound expression. It is not about pretending hardship feels good. It is about recognizing that the difficulty itself is the curriculum. Think of a recent difficulty in your own life, a disappointment or a frustration. How would your relationship to that event change if you could see it not as a random piece of bad luck, but as a necessary and even welcome part of your story? What strength is it inviting you to build? In a world of constant noise, the Stoics built a fortress within. This is the concept of the inner citadel, a mental stronghold of absolute peace and freedom that no external event can ever breach. It is not a physical place, but a state of mind you cultivate, a sanctuary of calm reason and clear judgment. When the chaos of the outside world becomes overwhelming, from a stressful work call to a personal conflict, this is where you can retreat to find your center. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who governed an empire in near-perpetual crisis, often reminded himself of this power. He wrote, "People look for retreats for themselves in the country, by the sea, in the hills." But this is altogether unphilosophical. When you can at any moment retreat into yourself, nowhere can a person find a retreat more full of peace or more free from trouble than his own soul. He was not dismissing the beauty of nature, but pointing to a more reliable and immediate sanctuary. Your own mind, properly trained, is the ultimate safe haven. Picture a typical modern stressor. You are in a crowded meeting and a colleague publicly criticizes your work in a harsh, unfair way. Your immediate reaction might be anger, embarrassment, or a defensive urge to fire back. This is where the inner citadel becomes your most powerful tool. Instead of being swept away by the emotional storm, you take a mental step back, retreating into that quiet space within. From this place of calm, you can observe the criticism not as a personal attack, but as an event. You can assess it rationally. Is there any useful truth in it you can learn from? If so, you can accept that part with gratitude. If not, you can dismiss it without letting it disturb your peace. Your response, then, comes from a place of chosen principle, not raw reaction. You have protected your inner freedom from the chaos outside the walls. This practice aligns perfectly with our modern yearning for mindfulness, but it goes a step further. It is not just about observing your thoughts, but about actively fortifying a part of your consciousness that remains unshakable. So, what does your own inner citadel look like? Is it a quiet library of reasoned thoughts, a still garden of acceptance, or an unassailable mountain peak of perspective? The architecture is yours to design. When do you feel the walls are being tested the most? Is it during a traffic jam, a difficult conversation with a loved one, or when facing a professional disappointment? Recognizing those moments is the first step toward consciously withdrawing inside, to the one place where you are always truly free. Take a moment to zoom out from your daily life, all the way to the cosmic scale. Picture the city or town you live in from 100 miles up, then 1,000, until the entire continent is a patchwork of brown and green against the blue marble of our planet. Now pull back further, watching the Earth shrink to a pale blue dot, then a speck of dust, lost in the unimaginable void between stars. This is the Stoic practice known as the view from above, and it is one of the most powerful tools for dissolving anxiety ever devised. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius regularly used this very meditation to ground himself. He would write reminders to look down on the human world from above, to see its countless festivals, voyages, and fears as mere ants bustling in an ant hill. From this vantage point, he noted, you can see how tiny the stage is on which we perform our dramas. The goal of this practice is not to make our lives feel meaningless, but to give our troubles their proper, proportionate size. That argument with a coworker, that project deadline, that social slight that feels so massive in the moment, becomes a microscopic event when held against the backdrop of a galaxy. This cosmic perspective is the ultimate antidote to the modern feeling of being overwhelmed. We magnify our minor issues because our field of vision is so narrow. The view from above widens that frame, instantly restoring a sense of humility and calm. It reminds us that we are a brief, beautiful part of a vast, ongoing process. Try it yourself right now. Think of one specific worry currently occupying your mind. Now, in your mind's eye, launch it into space. Watch it float away from you, past the moon, past the planets, until it is just one tiny data point in the silent, swirling grandeur of the cosmos. Does the emotional charge around it change? The problem itself may not vanish, but its power to dominate your inner world often softens into something far more manageable. The next time a problem feels all-consuming, remember you have this tool. You can always choose to rise above the noise, to see your life from the stars, and find the quiet peace that comes from knowing your true place in the universe. Stoics were not pessimists, they were the ultimate realists who chose to prepare for anything. This mindset finds its most powerful expression in a practice called Premeditatio Malorum, the premeditation of evils. At first glance, it sounds like a recipe for anxiety. Why would anyone willingly think about what could go wrong? But this is not the same as worry. Worry is a passive, fearful churning over possibilities you dread. Premeditation is an active, calm exercise in vaccination. You are exposing your mind to a small, controlled dose of misfortune to build immunity against the shock and despair if it ever actually happens. The Roman philosopher Seneca captured the core of this practice perfectly. He advised that we should periodically tell ourselves that the things we cherish, from our possessions to our loved ones, are merely on loan. We should contemplate their potential loss not to breed sadness, but to shatter our sense of entitlement and awaken a profound gratitude for their presence right now. He wrote that he would often assume the role of a person facing adversity, taking a few days to live on the cheapest food and roughest clothing. He concluded, he robs present ills of their power who has perceived their coming beforehand. This is the entire purpose. By mentally walking through a negative outcome, you rob the future event of its ability to paralyze you with fear. Modern psychology and even high-stakes professions echo this ancient wisdom. Pilots run through emergency checklists and project managers perform risk assessments. They are not being negative, they are building resilience by rehearsing their response. Think about a difficult conversation you need to have, perhaps asking for a raise or addressing a conflict with a friend. Worry would have you endlessly picturing the other person's angry reaction, leaving you feeling helpless. Stoic premeditation is different. You would calmly and deliberately visualize the entire scenario. You see yourself making your case clearly. You then envision the possibility of a refusal or a defensive reply. Crucially, you then visualize yourself responding with composure, accepting the outcome with dignity, and carrying on with your life, your inner peace intact. You are not trying to predict the future, you are training your emotional reflexes. This practice fundamentally changes your relationship with failure. When you have already sat with the idea of a project failing or a goal slipping away, the actual event loses its terrifying power. You have already lived through it in your mind and discovered that you would survive, that your character would remain. Your self-worth is no longer tied to a specific external result. So, choose one small challenge you anticipate tomorrow. It could be a presentation, a difficult chore, or a potentially awkward social interaction. Before you face it, spend just a few moments in quiet premeditation. Walk through the steps calmly. Then, consider the single most likely thing that could go differently than you hope. See it happening, then see yourself navigating that outcome with steady resolve. You are not inviting trouble. You are building an inner fortress so strong that no outcome, good or bad, can ever truly shake your foundation. The ancient Stoics knew a secret about happiness that our consumer culture has forgotten. Our world screams that fulfillment is just one more purchase away, one more promotion, one more like on a social media post. This is the tyranny of more, a race with no finish line. Stoicism offers a radical alternative, a profound sense of enough. This is not a life of grim deprivation, but one of rich inner freedom. Happiness for the Stoic is not found in the chaotic, unpredictable world of external things. It is found in the one place you have total command, your own character, and your choice to live in accordance with reason and virtue. The Greek philosopher Epictetus, who lived in a simple hut with no possessions, put it with stunning clarity: wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. He was not praising poverty, but exposing the true nature of desire. An unchecked desire for more is like drinking salt water. It only makes you thirstier. The goal is to use your reason to decide what you truly need, and then to find complete contentment within those self-imposed limits. Contrast this with a modern experience. The thrill of unboxing a new gadget is intense, but it fades quickly, often within hours. That initial spike of dopamine crashes, leaving you exactly where you started, or even looking for the next thing to buy. Now compare that to the quiet, lasting satisfaction that comes from acting with integrity. The feeling after you have been genuinely kind to someone who cannot repay you, or after you have completed a difficult task with excellence simply for its own sake. That feeling does not fade, it accumulates, it becomes part of the foundation of who you are. One is a flickering spark from the outside, dependent on a transaction. The other is a steady, internal fire that you fuel with your own choices. This is the Stoic art of contentment, building a life so solid on the inside that the storms of fortune on the outside cannot topple it. So take a moment and ask yourself this simple but profound question. In one area of your life, perhaps your finances, your work, or your possessions, what does enough truly look like for you? Not what society says you should want, but the point at which you could honestly say, I have what I need and my peace is complete. The most life-affirming practice might be to regularly remember your death. This is the heart of the Stoic exercise known as memento mori, a Latin phrase meaning remember you must die. At first, it sounds dark, even morbid. But the Stoics saw it as the ultimate tool for creating a life of urgency, meaning, and virtue. It is not about cultivating a fear of the end, but about using the certainty of the end to illuminate the value of your present moment. The Roman philosopher Seneca put it with unforgettable force. He wrote, "He who has learned to die has unlearned how to be a slave." What does that mean? It means that when you fully accept that your time is limited and will run out, you stop being a slave to trivial fears, to other people's opinions, and to the petty distractions that fill so many of our days. This awareness acts like a filter for your entire existence. It forces a brutal and beautiful clarity. That argument you were replaying in your head, that resentment you were holding, that creative project you have been putting off for someday, all of it is seen in its true proportion. Someday is not a day of the week. Memento mori collapses the illusion of an endless future, compelling you to act now. Think about the modern obsession with productivity and time management. We download apps and read books trying to hack our schedules, but the most powerful time management system ever invented requires no technology. It is the simple, sobering question: is this how I want to spend a precious hour of my finite life? Imagine a successful CEO facing a difficult decision that could define their legacy. By holding the memento mori in mind, they are not paralyzed, they are focused. They might ask, when I look back from the end of my life, which choice will I be proud of? Which one aligns with my deepest values, not just with this quarter's profits? This same principle applies to an artist staring at a blank canvas. The thought that time is limited is the very fuel that pushes them to make their mark, to stop waiting for perfect conditions and to start creating today. The awareness of death does not stifle life, it ignites it. So take this thought into your own world for a moment. If you carried the gentle but constant reminder of your own mortality with you each day, what would you stop doing immediately? What one conversation would you finally have? What act of kindness would you no longer delay? The answer to that question is a direct line to the life you are truly meant to be living. We spend our lives chasing desires, but Stoicism teaches us to train them. This is the first of the 3 core Stoic disciplines, known as the discipline of desire. It is not about eliminating what you want from life. It is about learning to want the right things, the things that truly lead to a good and flourishing existence. According to the Stoics, nearly all of our suffering stems from a single source: desires that are misplaced. We desire things that are not entirely within our power, like wealth, fame, or the constant approval of others. And then we are shocked and upset when we do not get them, or when we get them and they fail to deliver the lasting happiness we expected. This is the trap of modern consumer desire, an endless cycle of craving and temporary satisfaction that leaves us perpetually hungry. The Stoic path offers a way out. The philosopher Epictetus, who dedicated his life to teaching this very principle, gave us the ultimate guide. He said, "Work, therefore, to be able to say to every harsh appearance, you are but an appearance, and not absolutely the thing you appear to be." Then he tells us to examine it by the rules we possess. The first rule is to examine our desires and aversions, to ensure we will never fail to get what we desire nor fall into what we want to avoid. He is telling us that our primary job in life is to become a master of our own wants and dislikes. Think about the common desire for social media validation. You post a photo or a comment, and you desire likes and positive comments. This desire is for something outside your control. You cannot force people to engage. When the likes are few, you feel disappointment, even anxiety. Now contrast that with a Stoic-aligned desire. Instead of desiring validation, you desire to express yourself with honesty and integrity. You desire to contribute something meaningful to the conversation. This desire is entirely within your power. You can fulfill it the moment you post, regardless of the external reaction. The outcome, whether praise or silence, cannot disturb your peace because you already achieved what you set out to do. Your desire was for an action you control, not a result you do not. This realignment is the essence of the discipline. It transforms you from a puppet of external events into the author of your own contentment. So, bring this into your own world for a moment. Look at one desire that frequently occupies your thoughts. Perhaps it is the desire for a particular job title, for a certain number in your bank account, or for a specific person to treat you differently. Now ask yourself, is this desire aligned with what is truly good, with my own virtue and reason? Or is it a desire for an external outcome that, in the grand scheme, does not ultimately define your character or your peace? Identifying this single misalignment is the first, powerful step toward training your desires and reclaiming your freedom from the endless chase. Stoicism is not a passive philosophy. It demands we act with purpose and for others. This is the second core discipline, the discipline of action. While the first discipline trained our desires, this one trains our outward behavior in the world. Its central command is to act with justice and for the common good. treating every interaction as an opportunity to contribute to the whole. The reward for such action is not found in the outcome, but in the action itself. Doing the right thing is its own justification. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who spent his life in the service of a vast empire, constantly reinforced this idea in his private writings. He instructed himself, "When you have done a good act and another has received it, why do you look for a third thing besides these? Like a fool, you have done your act. You have received its immediate reward. That immediate reward is the quiet, unshakable knowledge that you acted with integrity." This ancient principle speaks directly to our modern search for purpose-driven work and ethical living. We often tie our sense of accomplishment to external validation, a bonus, a promotion, or public praise, but that makes our self-worth fragile, dependent on the fickle opinions of others. The Stoic alternative builds an internal source of value that no one can take away. Imagine a business owner faced with a critical decision. A lucrative contract is on the table, but fulfilling it would require cutting corners on environmental standards or using a supplier with questionable labor practices. The easier, more profitable path is clear. The Stoic, however, is guided by a different calculus. They ask not what is most profitable, but what is right. They consider the common good, the well-being of the environment, the dignity of the workers they would indirectly support. They choose the ethically sound path, even if it means less money in the short term. The reward is not the contract, but the character forged in that moment of choice. The act of choosing justice over profit becomes its own profound achievement, a deposit into the bank of your own soul that pays dividends in self-respect. This week, identify one single action you can take that benefits your community, no matter how small. It could be picking up litter in your local park, offering genuine and specific praise to a colleague, or volunteering an hour of your time. Perform this action not for recognition, but for the simple, immediate reward of knowing you made your corner of the world a little more just, a little more kind. Between an event and your reaction, there is a space. Stoics mastered that space. This is the third and final core discipline, the discipline of assent. It is the moment of pure freedom, the split second where you decide whether to accept or reject your initial, raw impression of a situation. Your power does not lie in preventing the first flash of anger, fear, or hurt. It lies in what you do next. The philosopher Epictetus, who spent his life teaching people how to be free, pinpointed this with surgical precision. He said, "What upsets people is not things themselves, but their judgments about these things." An event is just an event. It is your judgment, your silent, internal agreement with a negative interpretation that unleashes the emotional storm. This 2,000-year-old insight is the very bedrock of modern cognitive behavioral therapy, a proven method for managing anxiety and depression. Both traditions recognize the same fundamental truth. We are not victims of our thoughts, we are the gatekeepers. Imagine you receive an email from your boss. It is brief and contains a pointed criticism of your recent work. The initial impression, the involuntary first thought, might be, "He thinks I'm incompetent. I'm going to be fired." This thought carries a jolt of panic and defensiveness. The untrained mind immediately assents to this impression. It accepts it as absolute truth. The result is a cascade of stress, a frantic, poorly written reply, or hours of miserable rumination. The Stoic, practicing the discipline of assent, intercepts that initial impression at the gate. They pause, they create that crucial space. They then examine the thought like a scientist examining a specimen. Is it true that this single piece of feedback means I am incompetent? Is it absolutely certain that my job is in jeopardy? Perhaps the boss is simply busy and was being direct. Perhaps the criticism, while poorly delivered, contains a tiny nugget of useful truth I can learn from. By withholding your immediate agreement, you can choose a different, more rational judgment. You can assent to a thought like, "This is one person's opinion on one piece of work. I will consider it calmly and decide if there is anything I can use to improve." The external event, the email, did not change, but your inner world, your emotional reality, is now one of calm assessment rather than blind panic. This tiny pause is where your true freedom lies. Think back to a recent moment where you reacted impulsively, perhaps in traffic or during a difficult conversation. Can you identify that initial automatic thought you had? Now, replay the moment and insert that vital space. What different, more reasoned judgment could you have chosen to assent to in that pause? Mastering this single discipline transforms you from a reactor, pushed and pulled by every external event, to an actor, the conscious author of your own inner peace. What if your character was the only thing of real, lasting value? This is the radical heart of Stoic ethics, a principle that turns our entire modern value system on its head. The ancient Stoics, from Zeno to Chrysippus, argued with unwavering conviction that virtue is the sole good. Everything else we chase, from wealth and reputation to health and comfort, belongs to a separate category they called the indifferents. This does not mean these things are worthless. It means they lack the power to truly make us good or bad, happy or miserable on their own. Their value depends entirely on how we use them, and that use is always a matter of our virtue. Chrysippus, one of the great systematizers of the philosophy, made this profoundly clear. He stated that virtue is the only good, and that it is sufficient for happiness, even if a person is in the grips of poverty, sickness, or other so-called misfortunes. To possess a good and noble character is to possess everything that truly matters. Everything else is a tool, and a tool is only as good as the hand that wields it. This is the meaning of eudaimonia, that deep sense of human flourishing that comes from living in excellence. It is a state of being that is entirely self-contained, built from the quality of your choices, not the quantity of your possessions. Now, the Stoics were not foolish. They recognized that some of these indifferent things are naturally preferable. They called these preferred indifference. It is perfectly rational to prefer health over sickness, wealth over poverty, and a good reputation over disgrace. A Stoic is not trying to get sick or become destitute. The crucial difference lies in where you place your ultimate worth. For the Stoic, the goal is to pursue these preferred things with virtue, while remaining equally tranquil whether you secure them or not. Your happiness is not riding on the outcome. Your fulfillment is found in the virtuous pursuit itself. Imagine two people. One is a person of modest means, perhaps a teacher or a caregiver, who acts with immense courage, justice, and kindness every single day. They are reliable, honest, and face their challenges with wisdom and grace. According to Stoic logic, this person is truly wealthy, living a life of profound and unassailable goodness. Now picture a billionaire who has amassed a fortune through deception, exploitation, and cowardice, hiding from the truth of their actions. They may have all the external trappings of success, but they are impoverished where it counts most, in their soul. The first person sleeps soundly, secure in their own character. The second may lie awake at night, haunted by a hollowness that all the money in the world cannot fill. So take a moment and bring this ancient standard into your own life. Think of a recent success or failure, perhaps a project at work or a personal goal. Now gently shift your focus from the outcome. Instead, evaluate that experience based solely on the virtue you displayed. Did you act with wisdom in your planning? Did you show courage in facing the difficult parts? Were you just and fair in your dealings with others? Did you exercise temperance, resisting the urge to take shortcuts or act from impulse? The final result, whether it was a triumph or a setback, becomes almost irrelevant. The real measure of that chapter in your life is the person you chose to become while living through it. When you start to measure your life by this internal yardstick, a profound shift occurs. You are no longer a leaf blown by the winds of fortune, but the tree itself, with roots sunk deep into the unshakable ground of your own character. The Stoic path to happiness was to live as a rational part of a rational cosmos. This central tenet, living in accordance with nature, is often misunderstood. It does not mean retreating to a cabin in the woods. It means recognizing your unique role within a vast, intelligent, and interconnected universe. To live in accordance with nature is to live in harmony with your own highest faculty, which is reason, and to use that reason to fulfill your purpose as a social being designed for cooperation. The Stoics saw the cosmos itself as permeated by a divine rational principle, the logos. Your personal reason is a fragment of this universal mind. Aligning with nature, therefore, is the ultimate act of authenticity, bringing your inner world into sync with the fundamental order of reality. The Roman orator Cicero, in his work on duties, captured the social dimension of this idea perfectly. He wrote that we are not born for ourselves alone, but our country claims a part of our being and our friends a part. This is a profound ecological and social mindfulness. You are a thread in a vast living tapestry, and your well-being is inextricably linked to the well-being of the whole. This ancient insight mirrors modern concepts like the psychological state of flow, where action and awareness merge, and you feel a deep connection to something larger than yourself. It also resonates with our growing understanding of ecological systems, where every action has a ripple effect. Consider a simple, practical choice. You are in a supermarket reaching for a product. You see two options, one with excessive plastic packaging and one with minimal, recyclable materials. The convenient, habitual choice might be the former. But in that moment, you engage your reason. You consider the broader system, the health of the planet, the well-being of future generations. Choosing the sustainable option is not just an environmental act, it is a deeply Stoic one. You are using your rational capacity to make a decision that aligns with the good of the whole cosmic community of which you are a part. You are living in accordance with nature, both your own rational nature and the physical world you inhabit. This principle scales to every interaction. Listening deeply to a friend in distress rather than waiting for your turn to speak is an act of cosmic alignment. So, bring this ancient ideal into your own day. Ask yourself, in one small area of my life, is my current action in accordance with nature? Is it rational? Is it virtuous? And does it acknowledge my connection to the wider human and natural world? The answer reveals how closely you are walking the path toward a truly harmonious life. In an age of burnout, the Stoics were the original resilience coaches. They understood that a calm sea never made a skilled sailor, and they designed their entire philosophy as a training ground for the soul. This is not about gritting your teeth and merely surviving hardship. It is about learning to endure it with grace and, more importantly, to allow the difficulty itself to sculpt you into a stronger, wiser person. Seneca, the philosopher and statesman, captured this transformative power perfectly. He wrote, "Fire is the test of gold, adversity of strong men. The struggle does not break you. It reveals the true quality of your character, just as a forge reveals the strength of a metal." Modern psychological resilience training echoes this ancient wisdom. Therapists often encourage cognitive reframing, helping clients see challenges not as insurmountable threats, but as manageable problems or even opportunities for growth. The Stoics were pioneers of this very technique, systematically turning every obstacle into a chance to practice virtue. A setback becomes a chance to practice patience. An injustice becomes a chance to practice justice. A loss becomes a chance to practice courage. Your entire life becomes a classroom, and the hardest lessons are the most valuable. Consider the story of Cato the Younger, a Roman senator famous for his unwavering integrity. He spent his political career in a lonely, often losing battle against the corruption and rising tyranny of Julius Caesar. He was defeated, mocked, and ultimately driven to suicide when his cause was lost. Yet, in the Stoic view, Cato was not a failure. His resilience was legendary. He did not measure his success by victory, but by his unwavering commitment to his principles in the face of certain defeat. His life became the ultimate Stoic case study, proving that resilience is not about winning, but about how you hold your ground. Centuries later, his example inspires modern leaders and entrepreneurs who face their own forms of repeated failure and rejection, learning that true resilience is built not in avoiding the fight, but in choosing which hills are worth dying on. So, look at a current challenge in your own life. It might be a difficult project, a financial strain, or a personal conflict. Now, try this radical reframing. See this hardship not as a problem to be eliminated, but as a training exercise specifically designed for you. What specific virtue is this situation inviting you to build? Is it the patience to endure a slow process, the courage to have a difficult conversation, the wisdom to accept what you cannot change? By shifting your perspective, you transform a source of stress into a purposeful mission for your own growth. The most powerful Stoic tool for self-improvement requires only a pen and paper. This is the nightly practice of reflection, a quiet conversation with yourself that turns the day's events into lasting wisdom. The Stoics believed that an unexamined life was a life lived on autopilot, tossed by every impulse and emotion. To counter this, they dedicated time each evening to a deliberate review of their actions and thoughts. They would ask themselves where they had succeeded in living according to their principles, and more importantly, where they had failed. This was not an exercise in self-criticism, but in honest self-assessment, a way to identify patterns and plan for a better tomorrow. We see this most famously in the personal writings of the Emperor Marcus Aurelius. His book, Meditations, was never intended for publication. It was his private journal, a raw record of his struggles to remain just, patient, and rational while bearing the immense weight of an empire. He was literally writing to himself, reinforcing his own training. This ancient habit aligns perfectly with modern mental health practices, where journaling is widely recommended to process emotions, reduce stress, and gain clarity. The process is beautifully simple. At the end of your day, find a quiet moment and ask yourself just 3 questions. First, what did I do well today? Acknowledge a moment where you acted with patience, courage, or kindness, reinforcing that positive behavior. Second, where could I have done better? Identify a specific instance where you fell short of your ideals, perhaps by reacting with anger or avoiding a difficult duty. And third, what will I do differently tomorrow? Transform that insight into a concrete intention for the next day. This entire practice might take only 5 minutes, but its cumulative effect is transformative. It installs a feedback loop for your character, ensuring you learn from every single day. So tonight, before you sleep, try it. Just 1 sentence in a notebook or on your phone. What is one thing you learned about yourself today? That single act of paying attention is the first step toward mastering your inner world. Stoics had a simple word trick to diffuse any stressful situation. It is the practice of cognitive distancing, the act of stripping away the dramatic, emotional language we usually wrap around our problems. Instead of saying, "My boss humiliated me in front of the entire team," you would state the bare facts. My boss stated that the report contained errors during the team meeting. The event itself has not changed, but the story you are telling yourself about it has been completely transformed. You remove the layer of judgment, and with it, the power the event has to wound you. This is deeply connected to the teachings of Epictetus, who constantly reminded his students that events are just events. It is our added judgment, our label of insult or catastrophe, that does the real damage. By describing things objectively, you are refusing to add that poisonous label. You are seeing the world as it is, not as your fears and insecurities paint it to be. Modern therapy calls this cognitive diffusion, a method of separating yourself from your thoughts by observing them as mere words and pictures, not absolute truth. The Stoics were practicing this 2,000 years ago. Take a common modern frustration, being stuck in traffic. The typical internal narrative is full of loaded language. This is a nightmare. I'm going to be late and ruin everything. This always happens to me. Now apply the Stoic word trick. State the facts. Cars on this road are moving slower than my preferred speed. This will likely cause me to arrive at my destination later than I planned. Feel the difference. The first version creates a panic-stricken, helpless victim. The second describes a logistical situation that you can manage. You can call ahead, you can listen to an audiobook, you can accept the delay with calm. The facts are the same, but your psychological freedom is restored. So, try this powerful tool for yourself right now. Pick one current worry. How are you currently describing it in your mind with all its emotional charge? Now strip it down. Write a single, plain, factual sentence about what actually happened or what might happen. You are not solving the problem yet. You are simply clearing the fog of judgment so you can see the situation for what it is and act from a place of calm clarity, not reactive fear. Stoicism's goal wasn't solitary peace, but a profound sense of connection to all people. This philosophy calls us to recognize a natural expansion of care, a process the Greeks called oikoiosis. It begins with the instinct we are born with, the concern for our own well-being, but it doesn't end there. Our rational nature guides us to see that we are part of a larger whole, first our family, then our local community, and eventually the entire human race. This isn't a chore or a moral obligation imposed from the outside. It is the logical outcome of understanding that we are social creatures designed for cooperation, and that our own fulfillment is tied to the well-being of the collective. This expanding circle of concern is the very foundation of Stoic justice and ethics. It transforms abstract virtue into concrete action toward others. The Stoic philosopher Hierocles illustrated this with a beautiful image. He asked us to imagine ourselves at the center of a series of concentric circles. The innermost circle is your own mind and body. The next circle holds your immediate family. The circles continue outward, encompassing your extended family, your neighbors, your fellow citizens, and finally, all of humanity. Our task, he suggested, is to continually draw those outer circles inward, to bring distant people closer in our thoughts and our concern. We are to treat the stranger with a little more of the consideration we reserve for a cousin, and our neighbor with a little more of the loyalty we feel for a sibling. Marcus Aurelius echoed this duty from his imperial throne, reminding himself that we are made for cooperation, like feet, like hands, like eyelids. To work against each other, he wrote, is contrary to nature. This is ancient wisdom that speaks directly to our modern ideas of global citizenship and empathy, urging us to see the shared humanity in everyone we meet. Consider a practical example of this principle in action. You are driving and someone cuts you off in traffic. The immediate, raw reaction is often anger. You might shout an insult they cannot hear or label them as an idiot. This reaction comes from seeing them as an obstacle, an outsider in your circle. Now apply the practice of oikeiosis. Instead of seeing a faceless enemy, you consciously draw that person into a closer circle. You might consider that they are perhaps rushing to a sick child, or that they are simply having a terrible, distracted day, just as you have had. This isn't about excusing dangerous driving, but about shifting your internal narrative. The event remains the same, but your judgment of it changes from one of personal offense to one of understanding. You replace the flash of anger with a calmer, more connected response. You protect your own peace while acknowledging their shared humanity. This week, bring this ancient exercise into your own life. Who is one person currently outside your immediate circle of concern that you could draw a little closer? Perhaps it is a difficult coworker you usually avoid, a political commentator you disagree with vehemently, or simply a harried cashier at the grocery store. Can you extend to them, even for a moment, the same basic understanding you would grant a flustered friend? That small act of mental reframing is how we begin to build a wider world of peace, starting from within our own mind. How much time and energy do you waste worrying about what others think? This constant mental calculation for social approval is a heavy tax on our peace of mind. The Stoics proposed a radical solution to make your sense of self-worth entirely independent of external praise or blame. This is not a call to arrogance or to ignore constructive feedback. It is about building an inner compass so reliable that you no longer need to constantly check your position against the shifting winds of popular opinion. The philosopher Epictetus offered a stark image of the alternative. He said, "If anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said, but answer, 'He was ignorant of my other faults, else he would not have mentioned these alone.'" This is not about dismissing criticism out of hand, but about recognizing that another person's opinion, good or bad, is a reflection of their own judgments and knowledge, not an objective measure of your worth. Your value is a fact established by your own character and actions, not a fluctuating stock price determined by the crowd. Consider an artist dedicated to their unique vision. They work for months on a series of paintings that are deeply personal and unlike the current popular style. When they exhibit the work, one critic dismisses it as irrelevant. A few patrons, however, are profoundly moved and offer sincere praise. The untrained ego might be crushed by the criticism or become addicted to the praise, desperately creating more of what pleased that small group. The Stoic artist, however, remains centered. They can listen to the feedback, extract any useful technical observations, but their fundamental motivation remains internal. They created the work because it was true to their reason and their artistic virtue. The act of creation itself was the reward. The external reactions, both the blame and the praise, are simply data. They are indifferent. They do not alter the essential goodness of the work, which was sealed the moment the artist completed it with integrity. Think back to a recent moment in your own life, perhaps a performance review at work or a comment on a social media post. Were you elated by a compliment, letting it define your entire mood, or were you wounded by a piece of criticism, replaying it in your mind for hours? Now view that same event through a Stoic lens. The praise was one person's positive judgment. The blame was another's negative one. Neither one is the full, complete truth of who you are. Your true self resides in the choices you made, the effort you gave, and the intent behind your actions. What freedom would you find if your inner stability was no longer hostage to the opinions of others? The past is gone, the future is uncertain. The Stoics knew the only real life happens now. Our minds habitually flee this truth, either anxiously rehearsing what might come next or painfully reliving what has already been. This mental time travel is the source of so much needless suffering. a self-inflicted wound of regret and fear. Stoicism offers a profound corrective, a radical call to anchor your entire being in the present moment, the only slice of time where you possess any genuine agency. The Roman philosopher Seneca saw this human tendency with startling clarity. He lamented that we are always busily preparing to live, putting things off, and dividing our lives into tiny segments instead of living it as a whole. We treat the present as an inconvenient waiting room for a future that never actually arrives, and in doing so, we miss our own lives as they are happening. This ancient distraction is amplified 1,000-fold in our modern world. The constant pings from our phones, the endless scroll of social media, the pressure to multitask, all conspire to pull us out of the now. We eat while watching a screen, walk while listening to a podcast, and talk with a friend while mentally composing an email. We are everywhere but here, and then we wonder why we feel so empty, so disconnected from a sense of real life. The Stoic antidote is deceptively simple: to do one thing at a time with your full and complete attention. This is not about grand gestures of meditation, but about reclaiming the mundane moments that make up your day. The next time you drink a cup of tea or coffee, do only that. Feel the warmth of the cup in your hands. Notice the aroma rising to meet you. Taste the flavor on your tongue without labeling it good or bad. When you walk to your car or to the bus stop, just walk. Feel the contact of your feet with the ground. Observe the air on your skin. Listen to the sounds around you without getting lost in stories about them. In these small acts, you are not just drinking tea or walking. You are practicing the art of being alive. You are exercising your capacity to inhabit the only time and place where life is ever actually occurring. So, for the next 5 minutes, give one activity your undivided attention. It could be washing a single dish, feeling the water and soap, seeing the plate become clean. It could be listening to a piece of music from start to finish without doing anything else. Do not let your mind drift to what you need to do later or what you should have done earlier. If it drifts, gently guide it back. This is not a test but a homecoming. For these 5 minutes, the entire universe exists in that one simple action. This is where your power lies, and this is where peace is found. To appreciate your comfort, the Stoics said you must sometimes willingly leave it. This is the principle of voluntary discomfort, a deliberate and temporary step into hardship to fortify your spirit against future misfortune. It is not a call to a life of misery, but a strategic training exercise for the soul. The Stoic teacher Musonius Rufus was a powerful advocate for this practice. He argued that comfortable circumstances make the spirit weak, while a life of hardship and struggle builds an unshakable strength. He even recommended sleeping on a hard bed and choosing simple, plain food, not because these things were good in themselves, but because they train the body and mind to be content with less. This practice acts as a psychological vaccine. By exposing yourself to a small, controlled dose of difficulty, you build antibodies against the shock and despair of real loss. You prove to yourself in a tangible way that you can endure much more than you think, and that your happiness is not so fragile that it depends on a perfect mattress or a gourmet meal. This ancient wisdom is echoed in modern trends like cold exposure therapy and digital fasting. The person who voluntarily steps into an ice bath is not just seeking a physical thrill. They are practicing Stoicism. They are teaching their nervous system to meet discomfort with calm presence rather than panic. They are building the very same resilience that Musonius Rufus championed. The same is true for someone who chooses to fast from their smartphone for a day. They are not rejecting technology, but inoculating themselves against the fear of missing out and the anxiety of constant connection. They are rediscovering that their peace does not reside in that device. The practice can be woven into the fabric of an ordinary day. It can be as simple as choosing to take a cold shower for the final 30 seconds, or skipping a single meal to understand the sensation of hunger without being controlled by it. It could be walking to the store instead of driving, feeling the weather on your skin, and accepting the minor inconvenience as a form of training. Each of these small acts is a declaration of independence from your own desires for constant ease. This week, choose one small voluntary discomfort to practice. Will you leave your coat behind on a slightly chilly day to feel the air? Will you turn off the entertainment and sit in silence for 20 minutes? The goal is not to punish yourself, but to consciously engage with a slight hardship, and in doing so, rediscover the profound gratitude for the ordinary comforts you usually take for granted, while strengthening the inner muscle that knows without a doubt that you are tougher than any temporary discomfort. A Stoic approaches life like an archer, focusing on the perfection of the aim rather than the arrow's final destination. This ancient metaphor, beautifully articulated by the Roman statesman Cicero, captures the essence of purposeful action. The archer's job is to do everything within their power, to choose the best bow, to notch the arrow with care, to draw the string with steady strength, and to release it at the precise moment, all while accounting for the wind. Whether the arrow then flies true and hits the bullseye, or is suddenly deflected by an unexpected gust, is ultimately not the archer's to command. The true art lies in the quality of the shot, not in the fickle verdict of the world. This is the ultimate separation of internal effort from external result, and it is the key to maintaining your peace in any pursuit. When you apply this to your own goals, the shift is transformative. In your career, your focus becomes the excellence of your work, the diligence of your preparation, and the integrity of your conduct, not the promotion or the praise that may or may not follow. In relationships, your focus is on being a trustworthy, kind, and present partner or friend, not on controlling how the other person responds or feels. Your self-worth is anchored in the quality of your own intentions and actions, the part of the process you truly own. Imagine a job seeker who internalizes this. They pour their energy into what they control, researching the company thoroughly, tailoring their application with genuine thought, and practicing their interview answers until they are clear and authentic. They walk into the interview having already succeeded because their success was defined by their dedicated effort. Whether they receive the offer becomes a separate event, an external circumstance they can meet with equanimity. They did their part flawlessly. The outcome does not define them, their character in the pursuit does. So consider one goal you are currently working toward. Where has your attention been fixated, on the target itself or on the steady hand drawing your bow? What would change if, for just this one endeavor, you measured your success solely by the quality of your aim? The Stoics saw the universe not as a machine, but as a single, breathing entity. They called this profound interconnectedness sympatheia, a living, pulsing web where every part is woven into the whole. A tremor in one corner of the cosmos sends a subtle vibration through all the others, because everything shares in the same rational spirit, the same divine breath. This was not just a poetic metaphor for them, it was a foundational principle of their physics, and it carried immense ethical weight. If we are all literally parts of one body, then our well-being is inseparable. In his private meditations, the Emperor Marcus Aurelius reflected on this very web, writing that all things are intertwined with one another. A sacred bond exists between them, and almost none is alien to the others. They are all coordinated together and jointly serve to order the same universe. This is a radical call to see yourself not as an isolated individual, but as a vital cell in a vast cosmic organism. Your actions and your character matter to the health of the whole. This ancient intuition finds a powerful echo in modern systems thinking and ecology. We now understand that a forest is not just a collection of individual trees, but a complex network connected by fungal threads in the soil, sharing nutrients and information. The pollution from a factory on one continent can affect the climate of another. We are scientifically living in a universe of sympatheia. This perspective transforms our sense of responsibility. An environmental ethic, for instance, is not just a modern political stance, it is a direct expression of Stoic physics. To care for a river is to care for a vein in the body of the world. To reduce your waste is to act as a responsible cell, not clogging the system with toxins. This principle scales down to our daily interactions as well. Consider a team at work struggling with a project. One member is consistently negative, dragging down the group's morale. The old way of thinking might be to see this as their personal problem. But through the lens of sympatheia, their negativity is a sickness in the team's shared body, affecting the health and output of everyone. Addressing it with compassion and clarity is not just about improving productivity, it is about healing a part of your own extended self for the good of the whole organism. So take a moment to reflect on your own place in this living web. Think of one action you took recently, perhaps a small act of kindness to a stranger or a moment of patience with a child. Can you trace the subtle ripple of that action through your wider community? How did that small vibration of your character contribute to the health of the entire interconnected being we all share? Want to improve your character? The Stoics said to find someone worth imitating. This is not about chasing fame or success, but about studying the inner qualities of people who embody the virtues you wish to cultivate. It provides a concrete, living standard for what a good life actually looks like in practice. Seneca often wrote about the immense value of choosing a wise person, a sapiens, to be your invisible guide. He advised that you should have a model of the good man and picture him constantly, as if he were watching over your every action and thought. This practice transforms abstract ideals into a tangible presence, making your ethical development a daily, guided conversation. The goal is to internalize their qualities of mind, not merely to copy their outward actions. For instance, if you wish to develop greater courage, you might study the life of someone like Harriet Tubman. You would not just memorize the facts of her story, but immerse yourself in her mindset. You would contemplate the unwavering conviction that allowed her to face unimaginable dangers repeatedly, guided by a belief in freedom that was larger than her own fear. You absorb the principle, not the specific act. How did she manage her terror? How did she persist after setbacks? By asking these questions, you begin to build a mental template for how courage operates in a human being. This is how you build your own character, brick by brick, using the blueprints left by those who have lived with excellence. So, who is one person you deeply admire for their character? It could be a historical figure, a family member, or a public figure known for their integrity. What specific quality do they possess that you feel called to develop within yourself? Keep that person in mind as a living example, a North Star for your own moral compass. In a world that never stops talking, the Stoics prescribed daily doses of silence. This was not a punishment or a sign of loneliness, but a deliberate and powerful practice of solitude. It was time carved out to retreat from the chorus of external opinions and reconnect with the one voice that matters most, your own inner guide of reason. Seneca, in his letters, championed this essential habit. He wrote that we must give ourselves a hearing and regularly enter into conversation with ourselves. He argued that you need to set aside days for being with yourself, for without such solitude, you become a poor companion for others and a stranger to your own soul. This is the ultimate purpose of Stoic silence, to become a true friend to yourself. The constant noise of our modern environment, from the ping of notifications to the endless stream of media, makes this practice more vital than ever. A digital detox is not a modern wellness fad. It is a 2,000-year-old prescription for mental clarity. This solitude is where you process the events of your day, examine your judgments, and reinforce your principles away from the world's distractions. It is how you recharge not just your energy but your moral compass. You can weave this practice into the fabric of an ordinary day without needing a remote cabin. It can be the first 10 minutes of your morning, spent with a cup of coffee in pure quiet before you even look at your phone. It can be a walk around your neighborhood, leaving your headphones at home and simply observing the world, listening to your own thoughts as they settle. It can be sitting in your car for a few extra moments after you park, allowing the mental static to fade before you step into your next responsibility. These are not moments of doing nothing, they are active sessions of self-communion. So the challenge is simple but profound. Can you gift yourself just 10 minutes of complete, uninterrupted silence today? Find a quiet corner, turn off all screens and sounds, and simply be with your own mind. Do not fight the thoughts that arise, just observe them without judgment. In that quiet space, you are not alone. You are in the company of your deepest self, the very source of your peace and purpose. The Stoics considered anger a brief, destructive insanity that must be avoided at all costs. They saw it not as a justified reaction, but as a fever of the mind, a temporary madness that clouds judgment and leads to actions we almost always regret. Seneca, in his powerful essay on anger, described it as the most hideous and frenzied of all the emotions. He wrote that other emotions have some semblance of peace and calm, but anger is all storm and violence, a short-lived fit where a person raves and foams, a prisoner of their own Chinese letter. For the Stoics, this fury is never, ever a rational response. It always begins with a single, quiet, and faulty judgment you make about an event. The trigger is not the event itself, but your silent agreement with a thought like, "This person has wronged me unfairly," or "This situation is an intolerable injustice against me." Anger is the child of this mistaken belief that someone has maliciously trespassed against you and that you are entitled to a different reality. The first and most crucial technique to disarm this process is to insert a deliberate pause between the trigger and your reaction. When you feel that heat rising in your chest, your job is to do nothing. Do not speak, do not act. Simply breathe and create a space for reason to catch up with the emotional surge. Within that space, you then engage the second technique, a radical shift in perspective. Make a conscious effort to see the situation from the other person's point of view. The driver who cut you off was not a personal enemy sent to ruin your day. Perhaps they are a new parent running on no sleep, rushing to get medicine for a sick child. Maybe they are a normally careful person who simply made a mistake, just as you have done countless times. This is not about excusing dangerous behavior, but about correcting your own judgment, stripping away the narrative of a personal attack that fuels the rage. By understanding their possible humanity, you drain the anger of its power. Your internal monologue shifts from "how dare they" to "this is a moment of human error or distress." Let's walk through this step by step with that common trigger. You are driving and a car swerves into your lane. Your initial automatic judgment is, "That idiot is reckless and has no regard for my safety." This thought brings the anger. Now apply the Stoic pause. You take a breath. You feel your grip on the wheel, but you do not honk the horn or shout. In that quiet moment, you consciously reframe the event. You consider, that driver may be lost, confused, or having a genuine emergency. They are likely not targeting me personally. You then focus on what is within your control, your own safe driving. You calmly adjust your speed to create a safe distance. The event is over. You have protected your peace, avoided a potential road rage incident, and acted with the virtue of patience. The entire emotional storm was prevented not by suppressing the feeling, but by challenging the faulty judgment that birthed it. Think back to the last time you felt a true flash of anger. What was the specific judgment you made in that instant? Did you believe you were being disrespected, that an outcome was deeply unfair, that someone was acting with malicious intent? Unpack that single thought. Was it an absolute truth, or was it merely one interpretation of a complex event? Your anger is a signal not to attack the world, but to examine your own mind. Stoics didn't want to be emotionless robots. They sought freedom from emotional slavery. This is the true meaning of apatheia, a word often mistranslated as apathy. Apatheia is not a cold, barren emptiness. It is a state of inner liberation where you are no longer hijacked by the storms of irrational, excessive emotion that twist your perception and lead to poor choices. The goal was always clear-minded tranquility, not a life devoid of feeling. The Stoics made a crucial distinction between what they called proto-passions and full-blown passions. A proto-passion is that initial, involuntary jolt. It is the flash of fear when you almost trip, the surge of irritation when someone interrupts you, the quick pang of envy when a friend shares good news. This is a biological reaction, and the Stoics understood it was largely outside our direct control. The passion, however, is what comes next. It is the judgment you add, the story you tell yourself, and your conscious assent to that initial feeling. You take that flash of fear and feed it into a narrative of impending doom. You take that surge of irritation and fuel it into a sustained rage. This is the territory of freedom, the moment you choose to either fuel the fire or let the spark die out. Seneca explained this with brilliant clarity. He wrote that the wise person is not one who never feels these initial bites of emotion, but one who refuses to be conquered by them. He will feel a taste of them, perhaps, but he will not surrender and be carried away. Your first startled reaction to a loud noise is a proto-passion. The lingering anxiety and frantic scanning for danger for the next hour is a passion you have assented to. The goal of apatheia is to live in the space after the jolt, but before the storm. Consider a common provocation. A colleague takes credit for your idea in a team meeting. The proto-passion is the immediate heat in your face, the tightness in your chest. It is a raw human response to a perceived injustice. The passion is what happens if you assent to the thought, "He has disrespected me and stolen my moment. I must retaliate now to save face." This judgment fuels the emotion into a full-blown anger. You might interrupt with a sharp, accusatory tone, escalating the conflict and damaging professional relationships. The Stoic, feeling the same initial heat, would pause in that space of freedom. They would examine the judgment. Is it absolutely true his intention was malicious? Is my worth truly diminished by this single act? From a place of calm reason, the response shifts. Later, you might approach the colleague privately and state, "I noticed you presented the concept we discussed. I'd like to ensure my contributions are clear in the report." This addresses the issue without being ruled by the passion of anger. The outcome is more likely to be constructive, and your inner peace remains unshaken. So bring this ancient ideal into your own heart. Identify one passion you feel has a grip on you. Is it the hot clutch of rage in traffic, the cold grip of envy scrolling through social media, or the heavy anchor of anxiety about the future? What would it feel like to achieve just a little more freedom from that particular emotional master? The path to apatheia begins not with suppressing what you feel, but with consciously choosing which feelings you will follow. The timeless wisdom of Stoicism offers a path to happiness that remains as relevant today as it was in ancient Rome. This philosophy provides a complete framework for a good life, built not on the shifting sands of external fortune, but on the unshakable foundation of your own character. We have explored the core ideas that form this path, from the liberating clarity of the dichotomy of control, which teaches you to focus your energy only where it can make a difference, to the profound embrace of amor fati, loving your fate and seeing every challenge as fuel for your growth. We have seen how the Stoics place virtue as the sole good, the one thing of true and lasting value that cannot be taken from you. This entire system was designed for one purpose: to cultivate an inner citadel of peace that no external event can ever breach. The modern quest for meaning often leads us outward to more possessions, more achievements, more validation. Stoicism turns this search inward, revealing that the tranquility we seek has been within us all along. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius left us with a final, unifying thought to carry forward. He wrote, "The universe is change, our life is what our thoughts make it." Your life, in its essence, is not what happens to you, but the quality of the judgment you form about those events. This is the ultimate Stoic promise, that by mastering your inner world, you can find fulfillment in any outer circumstance. As we conclude, we invite you to reflect on this journey. Which single Stoic principle resonates most deeply with you right now? Is it the practice of memento mori, using the awareness of your limited time to infuse each day with purpose? Or is it the discipline of assent, learning to pause in that crucial space between an event and your reaction? How will you begin to implement this wisdom in your own life this week? If you found this exploration of ancient philosophy valuable, consider subscribing for more content that bridges timeless wisdom and modern living. We would love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your journey toward a life of virtue and tranquility is just beginning.